We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets casket is got. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, regroup. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
All right, welcome back. We are doing a week 7 review, tournament review, Millie Maker recap. The helmet after helmet got me excited because last week we rolled out a new stacking feature of the DFS Army's Domination Station. And this is my first run using it. Did it in the mini max, the 350,000 entries mini max. And, it's helmet after helmet. So that's what it was. The helmets were all over near the top of the leaderboards. So my top lineup actually placed 21st in this. And, it was Mahomes, it was Kelsey stack with the Josh Palmer bring back, had Jerome Ford, and had Jerome Ford not got hurt, this lineup certainly would have done a little bit better. He was chalk. So, I wouldn't have won the contest because most of the people in front of me had him, but certainly we got a little bit higher. Donta Foreman, Jackson Smith, and Nigba had to jam him in once the news came out that Metcalf was going to be out. And Zay Flowers and Gibbs and New York Giants D. So that was my top lineup. Like I said, just outside of the top 20. And then we had a guy, Jezpat, he crushed it. So there were a lot of DFS Army VIPs in the top 50. But Jezpat, he had 3 lineups in the top 20. So super impressive stuff. He had Mahomes, Rice, and Travis Kelce double stack here. No bring back. Jamar Gibbs, Jerome Ford, Christian Watson, Downs, Foreman, and Ravens. That was his first lineup. And then he had, 11 and 12. So really good stuff. And we're going to see here, based on, how he did and how I did, we would have placed in the Millie Maker if we MME the Millie Maker, which I'm just not going to do because proper bankroll management. But I think he would have placed like third. He would have placed like third, fourth, and then I think the last two would have been like his last lineup would have been 8th place and mine would have been 9th place. So really good first run. Super excited about this new stacking feature. And, before we jump into the Millie Maker, want to do a quick shout out to Tan Guys. This guy is really good at showdowns. That's his thing. He won last Super Bowl. I think, it was the Eagles versus Chiefs. He had won over 100,000 in various contests by that showdown. Well, he does it again here. The showdown last Thursday. Kamara in the captain's spot, ETN, Derek Carr, Christian Kirk, Taysom Hill, and Jamal Agnew. Had a lot of takedowns. Really, when it comes to the optimizer, there's no one in the industry that has a better optimizer than DFS Army when it comes to taking down showdowns. So if you want to join us right now is the best time. You can get a month free. I'll include that promo in my Millie Maker write-up if you want to try that. If you've seen enough, you just want to sign up, use code FANTASYFLING for 10% off a VIP subscription. So shout out to Tan Guys. Great past week. And with that, let's go ahead and we're going to do a little different. I want to start with some smaller field stuff, and then we are going to jump right into the afternoon slate, and then the Millie Maker, Walt won it, and the MME strategy of top DFS pros, which stay tuned. It actually was a good week for the pros this week. So it was pretty good to see that, so that we're not just reviewing, losing ROI for all the pros. So this was the top lineup in smaller field, $33 entry. So, kind of middle stakes, 5,300. So much more winnable contest. And obviously the score is going to be quite a bit lower than what you just saw and the mini max, which was, 350,000 entries, for example. So, I had me and Jez had like 20th and 21st place. We're talking 217, 218, not good enough to win that contest. But yeah, that lineup would have smoked everyone in this contest, 5,300. So these are much more winnable. This is kind of where you want to play the majority of your money. If you can do the MME, do it. It's awesome. It's fun. But proper bankroll management. You want to do smaller field stuff. You want a portfolio of small fields, large fields, cash games, all that. So Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. Really, Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews have just been underpriced, and it's kind of perfect with Lamar being where he's at, under 8K, cheaper than he's been in a while, that he can afford that double stack. And, Jerome Ford, we loved him in DFS Army this past week. He was in a great spot. And Donta Foreman as well. He had came on the week before a little bit. He got the bulk of the carries. When Chicago is doing well, Donta Foreman, when they're playing with a lead, he smashes if you feed him. So they got a good run game, and he just fit right in. Amon-Ra, 26 points, and then Terry McLaurin, 15 points. And then nice stack there between Chicago D and Foreman. Obviously, in addition to the Lamar Jackson plus Zay Flowers plus Mark Andrews with the Amon-Ra bring back. So really good lineup here, 180 points and won $20,000 in that small field stuff. So let's go ahead and take a look at the afternoon slate, and then we will jump right into the Millie Maker. Of course, Fantasy Labs is going to do that to us. So let's just go right into the Millie Maker. For some reason, they don't have the afternoon only slate. So that's fine. We'll go to the Millie Maker and what won it. And, for me, when I was sitting here on Sunday morning and I was building lineups, and really before that, I was thinking, just all week about the different stacks you could play, and, just the ugly stacks, the vomit stacks, whatever you want to call it, which, we see a lot on this podcast as I review DFS pros and, what their general strategy is. And these 150 MME pros, they will definitely play a lot of poor quarterbacks, right? The Mahomes of the world, they're expensive. So they need this kind of game to be in the nuts. A guy that's 5,000, 5,500, a lot of times he just needs 20 points, and he needs the Mahomes of the world to not score 37 to be in the nuts. So, that's something you will see regularly. But when I was thinking about it, I was like, are we just maybe overthinking this like we often do? Isn't like the more obvious plays on this slate kind of Patrick Mahomes? It's Lamar Jackson going against a good team where he's going to have to do more than he normally does to win. And really, that's exactly what happened here. So you had Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce in this lineup. So they needed that ceiling type performance, and they didn't even really quite get there, but they both needed to be over 4x for this lineup to get there, and that's exactly what happened. It was the best game environment of the week, and that was the stack that brought it down. The primary stack, no bring back. We did have a secondary stack, Jamar Gibbs and Mark Andrews, and shout out to Bobby Millions, two-time millionaire winner, DFS Army staff. He was talking about Gibbs and Andrews ping pong stacks that he liked on Friday's Tournament Tactics shows. Surprise, surprise, a guy, Bobby Millions, who has won millions at DFS Army. He has some good plays once in a while. Oh, my God. Surprise, surprise. That's actually, he does this like almost every week. It's pretty crazy. So shout out to him in that show. Make sure if you like this kind of content, you hit the like button. And specifically, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification button so you don't miss an episode, specifically Tournament Tactics on Friday, when Bobby Wow is just dropping dimes, and you can learn a lot on that show. So Gibbs, Mark Andrews, the ping pong stack there. Total stacking points, you had 126 points. Now, one thing to note here, you'll notice too, is it was also Josh Downs versus Cleveland Browns D. You don't see that a whole lot, but you do see it from time to time. It's going to be, 1 to 2 slates a year. You will see wide receiver going against the defense. And specifically, I think if you got a guy like Josh Downs who's getting a lot of targets and he's cheap, I think that's when it is certainly more acceptable. And then, we know how defenses are. A guy like Downs could still eat, and a defense gets pick six. They get a fumble and run. They return, punt for a touchdown, whatever it may be. They could both eat. So a little bit of a secondary stack in there. Now, total stacking ownership was, this lineup was contrarian, actually. We're going to get into that next. 107%, so low. And really, because there's no guy over 20%. So you actually had a lot of guys in the double digits, but no one over 20%. And you had a couple guys under 5%. So I thought that was just really interesting because, despite Mahomes not being as highly owned as, I think he really should have. I think he should have been well over 20% on this slate. He was the second highest quarterback owned. Gibbs was the fifth highest running back. And Andrews, Kelsey were the top two highest owned tight ends. And by the way, this did have tight end in the flex. So I thought it was really good and kind of surprising to see all those double digit numbers and still 107%. So under 110%. Not much to say about the Cortland Sutton play. The Broncos offense hasn't been very good. And however, Cortland Sutton and Russell Wilson, they have a connection. So he was only 5,200 and hit almost 4x his salary. He's very close to 4x the salary. He was low ownership, so certainly a good leverage play. And then Josh Downs at 2%. That's kind of plays you want, specifically if you get a low owned guy who's really cheap and smashes. That's just really leverages the field. That's just something we see time and time again. And then, pricing and value. I was kind of surprised. It took 7 weeks for the winning Millie Maker build to finally pay all 50,000, use all 50,000 salary. Believe it or not, through 6 weeks, it's been 49,000, and some change. It hasn't been all 50,000, which is just crazy. We hadn't seen that before. So finally happened. And then, just overall lineup construction, one way to afford Mahomes and Kelsey. There's several ways that this lineup achieved it. Number one, they played double tight end with Andrews being a great value at only 5,700. I mean, we've seen him over 7,000. So really good value here. Second, Donta Foreman, only 4,800. So, starting running back under 5K with Roschon Johnson being out, 6x the salary, which that's a staple. Every winning Millie Maker build has at least one guy over 6x, dating back to years. And then Josh Downs at 4,500. So he almost 6x the salary as well. So just really good stuff. That's how you do it. That's how you can afford Mahomes and Kelsey. And then, I think one thing that stood out with his lineup is he only scored 238 points, which we're going to see when we go to the winning Millie Maker build. And just kind of some of the guys that were right behind him was like 220 was second place, for example. But as we get into the MME strategy, we're going to kind of look at these lineups. And it was a lower scoring week. So, a lot of these guys that won good money, they actually scored like 190 points. Like I was saying, I scored 217 in the mini max, would have been good enough for, top 10 in the Millie Maker this past week. So it was a lower scoring week. But however, the first place guy really smashed the field, right? So he had 238 points. By the way, he didn't MME, only 9 lineups. And second place had 220. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff. Lower scoring week. Overall, though, the ceiling is still about 247 points after 7 weeks. So let's go to some of the top pros. When I do this every week, I like to look for guys that have a positive ROI. Now, if you watch the show every week, thank you. Let me know, please. Tell us, let us know. It really helps, keep this kind of content coming. Let us know who you played. But nonetheless, if you like this kind of show every week, you watch and you see that a lot of these guys, the top pros, this is a losing battle for them most weeks. So when you get several pros who actually have a positive ROI, we love to see that for sure. It's a little more fun to dissect these lineups. So Giant Squid, for example, his top lineup was Mahomes +3, Pacheco, Rashee Rice, and Travis Kelce. Now, it was kind of an onslaught stack, right? Mahomes +3 didn't have any bringbacks. And he had Donta Foreman, George Pickens, Kendrick Bourne, and Jerome Ford. So Kendrick Bourne, the DS was pushing him. Donta Foreman, he was the guy I had to be over on. Just a great play. And then Jerome Ford, same thing. He was a great play this week. Who knows if he didn't, hurt his ankle, what he would have ended up with. But that was his top lineup. And then we're going to look at his exposures. And really with exposures, I like to look at this because we get a lot of takeaways. So he did have a lot of QB +2 and QB +3. We saw the one QB +3 lineup, but he had Stafford 20%. So no quarterback over 21%, right? So Stafford was his highest exposed, 20%. Lamar Jackson 17, Geno, and Patrick Mahomes at 14. So really just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in double digits with Stafford being his highest owned. And then, pretty flat the rest of the way. Just very minimal exposures. Now, a running back, highest exposure was Kenneth Walker, and it certainly makes sense for a guy like Kenneth Walker. And you didn't expect him to be 50% owned in the millie, right? To be that chalky. So at 40%, he probably thought he was going to be over the field here. Just based on our ownership projections, I think, Kenneth Walker was going to be like 23% owned, or, 20. Actually, I think it was like 27, 30. So, probably thought he was going to be a little over the field, actually ended up coming under the field. But kind of the same guys that we were all on at DFS Army. Pacheco, Ford, the DS was pushing these guys. And, Rashad White, that was a strategic fade. He's just not good. Projection system, sometimes they'll push guys, but, he's just not good. So wasn't really into it. Josh Jacobs, just a bad game script. And quarterback play has been really bad. It's just affected him. But you understand that play because it was a good spot. Donta Foreman, again, great leverage there. So that's certainly a big reason why it was a positive day. Now, lot of exposure to the wide receivers. And, I've talked about this before, but it kind of makes sense because only a few 4 or 5 guys that he had double-digit exposures to at quarterback, one being 20%. So, if you're making stacking rules and you're not, like locking a guy in, like going core on, some of these guys, spots you've identified, you're going to get a lot of wide receivers. So I believe he had 13 wide receivers above 17%. So Kendrick Bourne, Deontay, Puka Nacua, Pickens, JSN. That was a really good play. As soon as that news came down, wanted 100% of JSN. Just kind of needed that much of him. Because he did really well for salary. But yeah, as you see here, a lot of exposures. McLaurin, Rashee Rice, some of the higher ones, Palmer, Flowers, great spots. Totally understand those. Seeing a lot of targets. Lockett, much better play without DK Metcalf. Marquise Brown, we loved him. And a little under on Cooper Kupp, but over on Puka Nacua. So that's the type of plays that DFS pros are going to make, right? Direct leverage. If Kupp's going to be the chalk, I'm going to play Puka Nacua at 7,600. A guy like Kupp, which we saw, he had 6 points. If you completely fade a guy like Kupp, it's ballsy. But if you completely faded a guy like Kupp, who was 9,500 and only got you 6 points, that's going to be a great day. So you fade a guy like that, he has a 40-point performance. You're not winning anything. It's a bad day. But when he doesn't and he bombs and you faded him, you're having a good day. So fade the chalk as it goes. As the song says, I unfriend you. It's what you got to do sometimes. You got to have a pair to play. Mark Andrews and Musgrave and Laporta, and I'm sure we're going to get quite a bit of Kelsey there. So most of the pros and a lot of us at DFS Army, those were the three guys that we were playing. It was Kelsey, it was Andrews, and it was Luke Musgrave. So you will see those were the biggest exposures. Giant Squid mixed in some Laporta there. And then Giants defense and Washington defense, pretty highly owned. But after that, nothing really. Low exposures. So let's go to the next guy. Whistles. Now, one thing I love about Whistles, whenever I click his exposures and I go to the quarterback, I'm like, okay, it's either going to be 100% or it's going to be spread out. And that's pretty much what you have here. So, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, 17%, 10%, 10%. And then got Gino 11 and Jordan Love 10%. And after that, everyone was under 10%. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 quarterbacks. Now, a running back, no one over. So one guy at 40%, Kenneth Walker. But other than that, 23%, Jerome Ford 17%, Gibbs 14%, and Jacobs, Foreman, and Rashad White all in the 20s. So no one like really high, didn't really have any like complete fades. There were none. So at least at running back, faded Marquise Brown, little under on Cooper Kupp. No big fades at wide receiver either. So pretty spread out, 17 wide receivers over 10%. Which, yeah, we just looked at the quarterbacks. Nothing too crazy, right? So Sutton, Evans, Romeo Dobbs, JSN, Puka Nacua, Bourne, Diggs, Lockett, Flowers, Keenan Allen, Amon-Ra, Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin, Christian Watson, Rashee Rice, Kupp, and Marquise Brown. So kind of all over the place. And then tight end, like I said, three guys up top that most of us were on. Musgrave, Travis Kelce, and Laporta. And on there's Andrews. So it was actually highest exposures were Andrews, Kelce, and Musgrave. And it was almost like he set a cap at like 15% for defense. And, you know, the more I play, the more I love that because defense burns you so many times. And it's like you will get the best defense at a great price in a great spot. And then some other defense in a bad spot outscores them. So like I really feel like setting a cap on most of these defenses is really the best way to play. And then you kind of do, I think you could do that on tight end too, right? So you see these guys, there's really only 4 guys who he had double digit exposures to, and everyone else was just like, a little bit. Hardly any exposure at all. So like, I really like that. Andrews in a great spot. Musgrave in a great spot. Kelce in a great spot. Laporta seeing a high target share, only 10%. So I certainly love that. All right, got one more for you. I mean, and we got premium pros right here. The Whistles, Utica, these are some of the most highly regarded pros. So let's see kind of what Utica did as far as his builds here. So Patrick Mahomes, Kadarius Toney, Travis Kelce. And a Josh Bomber bring back. So wide receiver in the flex. And then Foreman, Kenneth Walker, Terry McLaurin. Also a Foreman in Chicago. So that's something we've seen a couple times. Wow. His second best lineup was Josh Allen. That's pretty crazy because he did not have the best day. But, I mean, rushing floor, right? 26 points. Dalton Kincaid, 15 points. Spoiler alert, that's probably going to be a good play next week with Dawson Knox having a bad wrist and potentially missing some time. So another double tight end, Kincaid, Travis Kelce. We got a couple of cheapies here, McLaurin, Drake London, Pickens, Foreman. So quite a few, really. So Josh Allen, Kenneth Walker, and Travis Kelce being the three expensive guys. Then we got Lamar, Zay, and Mark Andrews. So QB +2. The last one, Josh Allen, was just QB +1. Gibbs. Okay, so we got Jackson plus Andrews plus Zay Flowers plus Jamar Gibbs, Donta Foreman, Christian Watson. Another double tight end with Andrews and Kelce. So that was the winning Millie Maker build from those two roster spots anyway. And really several of the same players. So Donta Foreman, Jamar Gibbs. It was just Lamar Jackson. In all honesty, Lamar Jackson actually, he had the same score, I think, is Patrick Mahomes, and he was a little bit less. So what really crushed this lineup was Christian Washington and Elijah Moore. But nonetheless, this lineup was pretty close to having a lot of the same pieces, and obviously New England defense. So, just variance. Some more Lamar plus Andrews, Dalton Kincaid. So double tight end. I kind of felt that it was a double tight end week. I think I would probably set a rule, though, like this past week, that if it's a double tight end, kind of as you're seeing here, it needed to be Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews in the lineup. Certainly one of just, let it go crazy with all these different tight ends. But let's take a look at Utical's exposures. So quarterback, same thing. And it's kind of a gross week. No quarterback over 20%. A lot of value. So you really understand not going all in on any quarterback, but really still had enough positive here. Positive with Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. So positive leverage. And just keeping it under 20% for quarterback. And running back, no running back over 40%. And again, Kenneth Walker, negative leverage here because he was 50% owned. But again, the fact that he was 50% owned and most pros were 40% or less tells me no one really thought he was going to be 50% owned. So Jerome Ford, Pacheco, double-digit exposure there, but under on both of those guys. And then Brian Robinson, Aaron Jones. I had a lot of Aaron Jones myself. He didn't get his full workload, or he certainly would have had a pretty good day. Broncos defense has tightened things up a little bit, but nonetheless, AJ Dillon got a great screen towards the end of the game. That certainly would have helped boost Aaron Jones, a 40-yard screen. But yeah, Gibbs, Foreman, and Jacobs. A lot of these guys that we were on, you hit 2 out of 3. That's just how it goes. And wide receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba. So this was kind of one of those things where I think the last minute when that news came out, you're like, okay, I got to get some JSN, right? So, in really 50% exposure to a $3,900 wide receiver who's now going to get thrust in that number 2 role, highly regarded wide receiver. They spent a high pick on. Great play, and both of these guys So everywhere else, maybe, high 25%. Well, we're only going to go double that. So in a couple spots. And, I really like that. McLaurin, Palmer, and then Deontay and Devontae. So just kind of in the teens on everywhere else, few spots, some good value for like a Marquise Brown who's been really underpriced. And yeah, a couple high spots, everywhere else, pretty flat. So Kelsey, Andrews, under on Musgrave. Kelsey and Andrews are the top two guys. And Njoku, David Njoku. I got to tell you, I had this moment where I was betting a parlay. It was Jahmyr Gibbs over. It was like 19.5 receiving yards. And David Njoku, like 31 receiving yards, which I liked with just that game environment. And, Deshaun Watson potentially coming back because, he's targeted Njoku a lot. And then it was Jerome Ford over like 53.5 yards. Accidentally, it was supposed to be $50. The screen kind of grabbed and it was like $500. And I was just like, all right, whatever. That's just what it's going to be. It's $500 parlay. And Njoku was the last piece. I just needed him to get over 31 yards, 31.5 yards. He was at 31 and it was halftime. And I was like, he just has to get one more cash. He just has to get one more cash. And, $500 parlay, 2 same game, plus Jahmyr Gibbs. So 3 parlay plus like 500. And Njoku got the catch and was just celebrating. It's 3,300. So I will always remember David Njoku because of that parlay. So, he had a great day at 3,400. And Kincaid did pretty well too. And I expect him to do well with Dawson Knox out in that offense. We don't like timeshares at tight end, that's for sure. Unless it's, Tom Brady and Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski, the extreme outlier. So Chicago and Baltimore. And yeah, keeping defenses pretty, exposure is not keeping them high at all on that. So that should wrap it up. Tournament week in review. Thank y'all for joining me. Got the cash game review coming at you. But yeah, we have so much content coming your way. It's now NBA season. I think it's code. If you like playing NBA DFS, you want to break from NFL, or you just love basketball, it's NBA 23, gets you 23% off at VIP subscription. Tomorrow we got the first look. I got the weekend review coming as far as cash games. So if you're still trying to figure out cash games, I got that coming your way. And then just showdowns. I mean, Tan Guy, I showed you earlier. DFS Army's just been crushing showdowns. Millie Maker review, tournament tactics, which I mentioned earlier, the Bobby Wild Call, and Players Club, Live Before Lock. We got so much content coming your way. Definitely hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode. And, I always love doing the show. Love your guys' support. And we will see you next Monday for another tournament weekend review and Millie Maker recap. Take care, everyone.